All righty. Good evening, everyone. If everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. To lead us this evening, we have Jose Herrera from Troop 613. He is down here this evening getting information for his Communications Merit Badge. I'll turn it over to you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jose, what school do you go to?
I attend Millwee Middle School.
Come on a little closer. I'm sorry.
I attend Millwee Middle School.
Millwee, excellent. How long have you been in scouting?
I've been in scouting since I was in 3rd grade.
Excellent. So you want to go and be an Eagle Scout? Is that the goal?
I've been trying to get to Eagle Scout. I think I'm gonna make it, but I just need to finish all my merit badges.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for leading us in the pledge. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Chief White. How are you tonight, Chief?
Good evening. Very
Chief,
well, Mayor. Thank you.
Now, before you do the invocation, and since we have a crowd here this evening, you gave me something earlier that I was going to announce later. Let me announce this now.
Okay.
As most of you know, we've opened up our new fire station on 434 at just north of Boston Hill Park. It was a labor of love for Chief White. And Chief wants to invite everybody to the dedication and ribbon cutting on Saturday, June 25th, which is next Saturday, a week from this one, 10 a.m. at the station. They'll be parking up and down Broadway, Boardwalk behind Oviedo on the Park. There's going to be shuttles, take everybody over there. Please bring the kids, because the firefighters are going to take them on tours, and they might even get to slide down the pole. Will they?
They'll get to see firefighters go down the pole.
Just have your kids find the mayor. I'll take them down the pole. Is it this Saturday, Chief, or next Saturday?
Yes, this Saturday.
This Saturday, excuse me, folks. This Saturday, 10 a.m., come on out and see your tax dollars at work. I must tell you, we've all been in it. It is impressive when you see what the Chief has created. And just so everybody knows, we did want to name it after him. He wouldn't let us. So
I'm still alive.
Well, now we fixed that, remember?
Yeah.
Lars White, we were going to leave 8 spaces, fire station, and then we could just put memorial.
I think there were about 2 times during the project I thought it was going to say Lars White Memorial Fire Center.
Well, Chief, please lead us in our invocation as always.
Thank you. If you'd like to join me in a word of prayer, we'll do so at this time. Father God, as we gather today, we're certainly reminded of the events that took place just a week ago. And Lord, we continue to ask your comfort and to take care of those victims and those who are healing, those who are in the hospital, those that are home, the family, the friends, the co-workers, all the public safety and the huge impact it's had on this region. Lord, just grant us wisdom in our decisions and protect all those who serve others. And Lord, we also pray for a local firefighter that's battling a very grave injury or illness, Jeremy Saunders, that you would offer your comfort to his family as well. We thank you, Lord, for the Boy Scout that came forward tonight and our future leaders, and that you would bless him and give him safety and protection, as well as everyone in attendance tonight. Lord, we thank you for all that you do. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. I'd like to call our meeting to order now. It is approximately 6:35 p.m., Monday, June 20. We have all council members present. And council, with your consensus, there is one change to the agenda. Ceremonial item number 1, donation to the American Cancer Society, has been pulled from the agenda this evening. I believe it'll be on a future agenda. Yes? Okay? All righty. So moving along, our next ceremonial item is a Recreation and Parks proclamation. I have that proclamation here, and I will read it for Drew. Great job, Drew, as always. It says, proclamation, the City of Oviedo. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Oviedo, Florida, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreational services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improves the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, and provide vegetative buffers to development and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Oviedo recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Dominic Presempierre, Mayor of the City of Oviedo, do hereby proclaim July 2016 as Recreation and Parks Month in the City of Oviedo and extend greetings and best wishes to all. In witness of, I hereunto set my hand and the official seal of the City of Oviedo this 20th day of June, 2016. Drew, I will pass this down to the clerk. You and your department, as always, just do an exceptional job. I know the community appreciates all the parks programs that we have, and just keep up the good work. That is the end of our ceremonial items for the evening. We're moving on to item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes. This is the approval of the minutes for the June 6, 2016 regular session. I'd like to entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion to adopt signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we're up to our public comment portion of the meeting. This is for public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. If you've handed in one of these forms to address an item later on, I will call your name when we get to that point. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address council on anything else? Seeing none, we are going to close the public comment and move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda this evening consists of items number 5 through 10. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and that is as presented?
Yes.
Seconder agree?
Yes.
Motion and second. Anything? Councilor
Sir.
Shank?
That's fine.
Good.
Councilwoman? No? Anything? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. The motion on the table is to adopt the consent agenda as presented. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now let me catch up here, and we will go on. We have no public hearings tonight. We have no first readings. We do have an ordinance, which is number 13. We will start with that one. This is resolution number 3203-16. Mr. Cobb, can you enlighten us on this one, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the City Council to approve an amended and restated non-statutory development agreement and associated master land use plan and architectural design order number 006-16 for the proposed O'Reilly Auto Parts retail store. The subject property consists of 2.66 acres located on the east side of State Route 434, approximately 280 feet north of Mitchell Hammock Road. The property is a flag-shaped parcel, which is slightly more than an acre. It provides cross-access to State Route 434 and Mitchell Hammock Road to the west of Eden subdivision. property is designated downtown mixed use on the future land use map, and it also is zoned mixed use district city hall retail on the official zoning map. In April of 2007, the City Council adopted Resolution Number 1556-07, which approved a development agreement and master land use plan for a proposed Fifth Third Bank branch. If approved, the proposed development agreement and master plan will replace the Fifth Third Bank agreement and master plan as the standards for the development of the property. The Architectural Design Order Number 006-16 covers the architectural standards for the retail store. The applicant proposes to develop the property as a 7,594 square foot retail store, automotive retail store, as well as related improvements. The staff reviewed the development agreement and master plan and the architectural drawings and found that the proposed plans properly reflect the standards of the Land Development Code and those provided for in the development agreement. Based on that review, the staff recommends approval of the development agreement, the master plan, and the architectural design order. The city attorney also reviewed the development agreement and recommends approval. The local planning agency considered the development agreement, master plan, and architectural design order at its May 24, 2016 meeting, and thereat recommended approval. It's recommended that the City Council adopt Resolution Number 3203-16.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Is the applicant present?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jonathan Hewells, and I'm with the law firm of Lowndes, Drostick, Doster, Cantor, and Reed, and I'm here on behalf of the owner applicant, O'Reilly. Also in attendance tonight is the project engineer, Brian Zarlanga from Cardno. And I just have a brief presentation to share with you, give you a little bit more detail. Mr. Cobb did a great job describing it. Let's see.
Never works.
I did, but next slide, please. So this just gives a aerial photograph of the subject property. It is in the shape of a flag. It's made up of 3 separate tax parcel ID numbers, and it amounts to about 2.66 acres in size. It is currently undeveloped, and it effectively is an out parcel of the East of Eden project. It's located in the northeast quadrant of Central Avenue and Mitchell Hammock Road, just north of the Walgreens. Next slide, please. As Mr. Cobb mentioned, it has a comprehensive future land use designation of downtown mixed use, which is consistent with the general vicinity of that quadrant. Next slide, please. And it has a zoning designation of mixed use district city hall retail, so the proposed retail store is permitted by right in that zoning designation. Next slide, please. Just to give you a brief timeline, and Mr. Cobb touched on this, but this site had a non-statutory development agreement approved for it, a bank in 2007, April 2007, and that bank included some drive-up tellers, and it reserved the northern portion of the property for future development. Probably due in large part to the recession and other factors, that bank was never built, and O'Reilly bought the property in November 2014. And right from that point forward, I believe they engaged Mr. Zarlanga to come and start planning to build a store at this site. And I think the communications with city staff really started to occur at that point. There was multiple pre-app meetings with city staff and other informal meetings, and there was some exchange of some conceptual plans. And as those plans developed, it took about a year before we felt we were in a good enough position to make a formal application and submit it for formal review from city staff. That occurred in November of 2015, and through that process, staff has been great to work with. It's been a very collaborative process. There's been many revisions to both the site plan and the architectural drawings, and we always were seeking to try to get staff's support of the project, and we finally achieved that in about April of this year. And we felt we were ready at that point to go forward with the staff recommendation approval to the local local planning agency, and we're before them in May, and were recommended for approval at that time. Next slide, please. So the proposed use is an O'Reilly Auto Parts store. It's going to be 7,594 square feet, which, if you look at the overall 2.66 acres, would only amount to about a 0.07 FAR, so not a real intense use of the overall property. This is not a prototype store from O'Reilly. This has been upgraded, and really, in talking with the architects, about only 5% of O'Reillys that are built nationwide have even one of these treatments, and we're talking serious upgrades that involve siding, some stone, and some stucco. And we'll get in, and I have another slide that shows the other architectural elevations. But it's a highly upgraded store from what they typically would plot down if there was no interaction with staff. Next slide, please. And look at the site plan. It's kind of hard to read here, but the store is oriented to the south side of the site. It is bounded on all four sides by either public right-of-way or existing private driveways, and that kind of lent to how the site lays out. The store is located, like I said, to the south and more towards the Walgreens, and the north is reserved for really open space. It's going to be where the stormwater is put. It's a dry pond. The next slide will show you the landscaping plan. It's going to look, we feel, like a park. O'Reilly's going to put even a park bench out there for pedestrians to use. What's significant, and what we worked hard with staff, is as part of this project, we are bringing forward a new sidewalk along that internal route that's located on the right side of that slide. You would actually bring that down and kind of link it up on that site plan, and it's going to create a new pedestrian access into the East of Eden project, and then further on north along Central Avenue. Next slide, please. This is the landscape plan. It just kind of shows you how it will be landscaped. That dry retention pond is going to be landscaped on all four sides with large trees, and there will be large trees planted along its northern boundary of the site on the opposite side of that existing drive aisle. And there's also some very heavy landscaping along the kind of northwest corner, and then also the southern boundary that's shared with Walgreens. And looking, next slide, please. And at the architectural plans, that the elevation on the top is the orientation towards Central Avenue. Below that is going to be the orientation to Walgreens. That's going to be kind of the back of house. It's not going to have any effective entrance, and it's going to be heavily buffered from the Walgreens. The next is what's going to be facing east of Eden, and finally to the north is there on the bottom. Important to note, the trash enclosure is going to have matching architecture. It's not going to be, you're not going to see a concrete block on this building. So a lot of given back and forth with city staff to come up with this, but we feel it's a good plan. I think it's going to be an asset to the city. Having said that, next slide, please. We would just ask that we feel at least this project's consistent and meets the intent of the city's land development code. We would request your approval of resolution number 3203-16, consistent with the recommendations of the land use administrator and the city staff, the city attorney, and the local planning agency. Be happy to answer any questions, but just ask for a little bit of time in case there's any questions from the audience as well. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant from staff, council? No? We're good for now? Thank you. I have no written requests to speak on this item. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address council? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment portion and look to the pleasure of council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Henkin.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 3203-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman Henkin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you guys. That's how we like to see it in Oviedo. That's what we're trying to, get future buildings to look like. You guys hit every point that we talk about, all the different textures, and, looking at your other stores around, they don't look like that, and we appreciate it very much. That's what we're trying to do, especially being, so close to Oviedo on the Park with all the updated stuff there. So, wonderful job. Look forward to having you in the community.
Deputy Mayor?
I concur, and I like the sidewalk addition. Makes that area a little more walkable with, like the councilman said, Oviedo on the Park right there. There is a good amount of traffic now walking over to the stores over in that area. Needs to be, so it'll just make it a little bit nicer and easier to go to. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
I just agree with everything they said. It's very nice. Thank you.
Councilman Britton?
Ditto.
Well, gentlemen, it is a job well done. And I think what's nice that most folks can't even see is there's 8 or 9 parking spaces added to the Outback side. So when that restaurant's all crowded up now, there'll be some additional parking there, and I'm sure there'll be people sharing your back lot as well, but that's the nice part about being down in the Oviedo on the Park area between the Outback, LA Fitness Plaza, your plaza, the drugstore, the parking all just, the SunTrust, it all just kind of gets used and shared. So I like the effort, though, to add 8 or 9 spots on the, I guess that would be the east side. So great job.
And I'll add the landscaping. The landscaping, it's got grass there now, but it'll make that area along the wall and all the areas around it really look fantastic.
Now we'll just have to get Walgreens to do some work.
Bingo. That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's right. Mr. Cobb, that's a job for code enforcement. So. Anyway, anything else from council?
Nope.
Good. Anything from staff?
No, sir.
Applicant? No? All right. Call the vote. The motion on the table is to adopt Resolution 3203-16 as presented. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Motion carries. Go build a nice building, gentlemen. Good luck. What's your timeline? Timeline. Tomorrow? All right. Great. Well, thank you again for stepping up and working with the staff. All righty. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 3224-16. It's an appeal of our local planning agency decision. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cobb for some enlightenment, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Colbert for an explanation on what the proceeding is tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for City Council to approve an appeal of a local planning agency decision to deny a 14-foot deviation to the 25-foot rear building setback requirement of Land Development Code Section 4.15A5 that would allow a detached residential accessory structure to be located 11 feet from the rear property line. Land Development Code Section 4.15A5 states detached accessory structures in excess of 120 square feet in area must meet the setback requirements of Land Development Code Section 4.12. Section 4.12 is the setback requirements for the principal structure. In this case, would be a single-family home. The subject property is zoned R1, single-family residential. Therefore, per Section 4.12, the R1 rear setback is 25 feet, and the side setback is 8 feet. The applicant proposed to construct a 288 square foot detached accessory structure with a height of 12 feet 8 inches, 11 feet from the south rear property line, and 10 feet from the east side property line, and approximately 40 feet from the west side property line. Since the structure exceeded 120 square feet, the rear and side setbacks of 25 feet and 8 feet, respectively, were applied. The requested 14-foot deviation constituted a 56% deviation to the minimum 25-foot rear building setback. Per Land Development Code Section 2.4, the local planning agency reviews and acts upon building permit applications that require a deviation greater than 20% of a minimum Land Development Code requirement. The The local planning agency considered the requested deviation at its May 24, 2016 meeting, and thereat denied the requested deviation based on the following rationales. One, there was no evidence that special conditions exist on the property to warrant a deviation. The proposed deviation scale and intensity is not compatible with the surrounding lots and neighborhood character. And then 3, the proposed mitigative techniques were not sufficient. On June 6, 2016, the applicant submitted a written appeal of the local planning agency's decision. As part of the appeal, the applicant revised the orientation and the dimensions of the proposed attached accessory structure. The applicant reduced the structure from 288 square feet to 255.5 square feet. That's a reduction of 32.5 square feet. The applicant also reduced the height of the structure from 12 feet 8 inches to 12 feet. The applicant changed the structure's orientation so that a 12-foot wall faces the rear property line instead of the original 24-foot wall. And Linda, could you pull up those graphics for me just for a second? You can see this is the first graphic. This was the original application. You'll see the area that was hatched up in the north part of the property. Well, actually, it's the south part of the property, but on the top of the graphic. And you'll notice that the part of the structure that is adjacent to the rear property line is 24 feet, and then the part that's adjacent to the side property line is 12 feet. Linda, if you would please go to the next slide. You can see here is the applicant, as part of the appeal, has revised the orientation of the structure, where now there's a 12-foot wall adjacent to the rear property line, and then there's a 24-foot wall that is adjacent to the east property line. Now, the one thing about this, the change in orientation did not change the requested deviation. The structure is still located 11 feet from the rear property line and 10 feet from the side property line. It still exceeds 120 square feet. So therefore, the setbacks still are applied, and the 14-foot deviation is still necessary. Land Development Code Section 2.6A1 states that an appeal of a final decision of the local planning agency shall be taken to the City Council by any aggrieved person. The decision of the City Council shall be final unless otherwise appealed to the courts. Appeals to the City Council shall be de novo. And my understanding of de novo means starting over. So it can be, in other words, the applicant can make changes to the application. It doesn't have to be like a normal appeal where you take the record that was considered by the other board and it's presented to you and then you decide. This allows for new information to be presented, and I'm sure Mr. Colbert can give a much better explanation of de novo, but that's my understanding of it. Land Development Code Section 2.6A3 states that the City Council may reverse or affirm, wholly or partially, or may modify the decision appealed from and may make any decision that in its opinion ought to be made in the case before it. To this end, the City Council shall have all of the powers of the local planning agency. Now, the staff recommends that the City Council approve the subject appeal subject to conditions. One being that the applicant erect a 6-foot fence. 2, that the applicant plant 2 large canopy trees per Land Development Code Section 12.3B2. 3, the applicant plant bamboo and annual flowers along the entire length of the rear property line. And 4, the applicant shall construct the detached accessory structure to have stucco, trim, stones, and shingles matching the principal building. These conditions have been included in Section 1 of Resolution 3224-16. The City has received correspondence both in support and in opposition to this appeal. The correspondence that was received prior to the publication of the agenda was provided in Attachment 7 to your agenda memorandum. The correspondence that was received after the publication of the agenda has been provided to you in a packet on the dais tonight. So it's all there. The City Council has the following options. One is to approve the appeal. Now, this would, as requested, and this would require a minor modification to your resolution to remove the staff recommended conditions from Section 1. The City Council could approve the appeal with the conditions recommended by the staff, which are included in the resolution. This would only require a motion to adopt the resolution. The City Council could deny the appeal, and this would require a motion to deny the resolution. And lastly, the City Council can refer the the application back to the local planning agency for reconsideration since the applicant has modified the application. This would just require a motion to do that, just to refer the application back to the local planning agency for reconsideration. Those are the options that City Council has with this application or this appeal. It's recommended that City Council adopt Resolution Number 3224-16.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Colbert, can you just explain to everyone present this evening the process that is before us this evening, and specifically to the 14 public comment requests I have, what information that we can consider?
Okay. Mr. Cobb has done an admirable job, as he normally does, in telling you not only where you are as far as the code is concerned, but also accurately describing where you are from a legal standpoint. It is a de novo hearing, which does mean that you can hear new evidence, you can hear things stated that were not previously stated before the LPA. It is also correct that you can approve the appeal, you can approve it with conditions, you can deny it, you can refer it to the LPA for reconsideration. Since it is a de novo hearing, the public can speak, and they can speak for or against and give an opinion. The council, when it makes a decision, will need to be making a decision based on the code, and which is recited in the administrative report. If you have specific questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. So our decision is solely based on our code, correct?
Beg your pardon?
Our decision is based on our code.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. I do have many requests to speak forms, but before we get to these, I'm going to ask the applicant if they have a presentation for us. Now, there is somebody in here, Robert Slavak, with a, is that you, Robert?
No, my name is Tim.
Okay.
That's my brother.
So that'll be somebody else who will speak. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Dominic Persampier and members of the Oviedo City Council. My name is Jamie Slavik, and my husband Tim and I and our 3 daughters reside at 261 Kearneyville Way at the Preserve at Lake Charm. I grew up in this community, attending both middle school and high school, and have taught at Evans Elementary School for the past 16 years in Oviedo. I would like to share some remarks as it relates to our project proposal that is before you all this evening. The City of Oviedo has received many prestigious awards over the years, but none more valuable than the Best Place to Raise Children in 2013 and Top 10 Towns in America for Families. An accolade of this nature doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design, a design championed by an innovative leadership team that isn't afraid to take bold steps to enhance and promote the community in which they serve. Cohesiveness and harmony in a neighborhood rests in the eye of the beholder. If you drive through the Preserve at Lake Charm, you witness firsthand this cohesive and harmonious feel because it is a community that caters to families. There's a community playground, a basketball court, a large family common area that hosts many family events throughout the year. There are large pool screens, backyard playground equipment, outdoor kitchens rising up beyond fence level that shout of a family-friendly atmosphere. There is even a 3-tiered backyard garden that is indicative of backyard leisure. All of these follow the same theme of family fun. What we are proposing has been tastefully designed, matches our home structure, and includes landscaping and foliage acoustical barriers. The message being sent is that the Preserve at Lake Charm is not a cookie-cutter community, but one that celebrates the unique characteristics of those who reside there and promotes the varied lifestyles desired by its residents. It truly has a custom feel that promotes increased value and a sense of belonging to something special. My husband and I have met every deviation and mitigation requirement set forth by the city ordinance. We are not working outside of the system. We are diligently following appropriate steps within the system. We have designed and redesigned our project in an effort to accommodate our Preserve at Lake Charm neighbors. We have reached out to surrounding neighbors in an effort to explain our proposals and avail ourselves to any questions and/or concerns. All of those neighbors but one has responded to our invitation, are in support of the project. The one neighbor opposed has refused to request to meet with us so we could explain our project and try to reach an agreeable solution. We have even totally redesigned the original project in an attempt to accommodate the concerns of our one neighbor. With the landscaping and foliage that is planned, the only way the backyard neighbors would even be able to see the quote-unquote concrete box to which it has been inaccurately referred is if they were to look through their second-floor bedroom windows. The neighbors to their immediate left have created a tasteful foliage barrier separating their pool from these same neighbors. We are simply following that same protocol and the one required by the City of Oviedo Planning Department. In consulting with a local realtor whom we have much respect for, Sandra Buckner with Caldwell Banker shared her professional perspective reflecting her many years of experience in this community. She said, and I quote, "I've seen all kinds of outdoor kitchens, entertaining areas, and they've all added value. If your neighbor's concerned about selling their home down the road, they should realize adding value to your home will ultimately add value to their home." End quote. Closed minds thwart innovative thinking. Refusal to accept change or entertain its benefits doesn't support a sense of community. To refuse to explore the corners of the box or to think and create outside of it stifles growth. I realize there is power in numbers, but I also realize that there is power in doing what is right and beneficial for a community that embraces family. I encourage you to believe in the power of your own potential to make a positive difference in this community tonight. I encourage you to vote in favor of our deviation. The decision you make tonight will be a direct reflection on the importance placed upon the family unit and the autonomy given, with leadership approval, to make our home or any home more family-friendly and indeed a great place to raise children. Now that's what I call, ladies and gentlemen, growing in the right direction. Thank you.
I too would like to share some thoughts with you as well, but I would like to begin by saying we're willing to add 8 parking spots as O'Reilly Auto Parts did if that will get disapproved right now. So there's plenty of room in our backyard for 8 parking lots. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, my name is Tim Slavic and my wife Jamie and I reside at 261 Kearney Beale Way in the Preserve at Lake Charm for just over 4 years. It gives me great pleasure to share with you that my family has lived in Oviedo for 71 years. My parents and grandparents before me have enjoyed calling this great community their home, with my father being a former police officer in Oviedo in 1973, and my grandmother the city clerk. Our family has deep roots, and my grandfather owning and operating the only service station in Oviedo where the new townhouse now stands. I tell you this because our family appreciates what this city and community has represented for many years before me, and still does today. That is a place where a young couple can build a home and raise a family in an area that embraces and supports a family-friendly culture. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all this, but I would like to remind those in attendance that in 2011, Family Circle magazine rated Oviedo as one of the 10 best towns for families. This is no surprise to me and my wife, but has been validated on a national level and remains one of many reasons why families from all over this country look to relocate to our great community. My wife and I, along with our 3 daughters, Haley, Madison, and Ella, are very excited to create a family space in our backyard that aligns with and reveres the same values previously mentioned, but still respects our neighbors around us. Our dream includes a pool with an adjacent outdoor kitchen seating space that is only 12 feet deep and 24 feet in length. When we began thinking about this project years ago, we not only had to consider the features that we wanted, but how this concept might impact our neighbors as well. While the sounds of children playing are not uncommon in Oviedo neighborhoods and backyards, we decided to alter our engineered plans to include a solid back wall, as opposed to a completely open-air structure, to help reduce sound and increase privacy. Since the LPA board meeting, we have further taken into consideration our neighbors' concerns and have made additional changes to the engineered plans and have adjusted the placement of our structure on the property. We have rotated the building position to significantly reduce the visual exposure to our rear neighbors. There will be 12-foot side of the structure facing the rear of our property as opposed to the original 24 feet plan. This would be the same exposure that they would have to a 12 by 10-foot structure, not requiring a deviation at all. The roof has also been lowered even further. We confirmed with our engineer tonight it would be 11.8 feet to a very minimal pitch on the roof of the building. And the roof peak from 13 foot in the original plans. This roof peak is approximately 15 feet away from the property line. That's significant. The highest peak that is a concern is 15 feet away from the rear property line. We also plan to include a considerable amount of mitigating landscape of bamboo plants and multiple canopy trees along the fence line to further shield our kitchen area from view. This natural foliage will look significantly more appealing than an alternative structure such as a massive screened enclosure with no landscaping. We do have just two exhibits that we'd like to share that would exemplify this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what you're looking at there on Exhibit 1 is a picture of a structure within our community, the Preserve at Lake Charm, that towers above the height of our proposed structure. 3 times the length, and it is not buffered by any landscape. This, to me, is an example of, quote, squeezing a massive structure onto a piece of property unlike what we are proposing. We have also fenced in our yard with a 6-foot white vinyl fence to add even more privacy and separation. Additionally, the structure will be a mirror image of our home with matching roof shingles, stucco finishing, matching paint color, and stonework on the columns to add beauty and value, much like my friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts did, I might add. Clearly, the structure will match the architectural design, and this is critical because this has been one of their opposing positions. Clearly, this structure will match the architectural design style of pre-existing structures, namely our house, and many others with the same elevation within our neighborhood. The opposing neighbor has suggested that this would be fine if we extended off of our house 22 feet, and it would be then attached to our house. But in reality, they would have the exact same view, whether it is attached or not. However, this option is not possible at this point because of where our pool is located, which is why we altered the plan again to give the opposing neighbor the exact same line of sight as if we were coming off of our house, and is the reason why we've applied for this deviation. Whether the structure is attached or detached does not change others' ability to see it from adjacent streets. The implementation of foliage will help reduce that impact, but I can guarantee that massive screened enclosures, much larger and taller than our structure, will most certainly be able to be seen from adjacent neighborhoods even, let alone adjacent streets. Our thoughtful and considerate approach to this dream project for our home and our family will be realized at substantial increased expense to us. But these changes are the right things to do, in keeping with the values of what has made this community great. These changes will significantly reduce the impact on our rear neighbors while keeping our dream plan a reality. Our outdoor kitchen has been inaccurately described by the opposing party as a giant concrete box, giving you a negative impression. I can assure you that we are not building a pink 2-story mother-in-law suite. We are not building a metal building to cover a huge RV. We are not building an apartment. We are not building a commercial storage unit. We would like to build, however, a stylishly designed open-air outdoor kitchen with, once again, a matching exterior elevation with that of our existing primary home. Additionally, the opposing neighbor, as well as those speaking in support of them, have referenced that the feeling of this structure will create crowding and will not fit on our property. I'm going to steal a line from the Fun Spot. Our backyard is huge. Okay. It is approximately 45 square feet. Our proposed structure, 4,500 square feet. Our proposed structure is merely 255 square feet, easily fitting within the confines of our backyard. This square footage would allow 15 structures of this size. We just want one. With that said, our structure will be 67 feet from the rear of the opposing party's primary structure. They have a neighbor with a pool approximately 10 feet from their primary structure to the west on lot number 82, which they have had no problem with and enjoy and like the foliage that has been planted to mitigate sound and view. That's in Exhibit 2 there. Ironically, we are trying to achieve the exact same look and goal with a much greater distance between us. As interior lot homeowners with two-story houses, our primary structures alone are more intrusive than the addition we are proposing. Exhibit 1 that you've already seen demonstrates that there are already pre-existing structures just 10 feet from the property lines and standing 20 feet high. This condition already exists within our neighborhood with fellow interior lot homeowners. Our neighbors have also implied that granting this deviation will forever change the face of Oviedo. That is patently absurd. The words deviation, variance, exception are temporary in nature and not examples of change in law or code. Each piece of property needs to be looked at on an individual basis, and that is what this council is here for tonight. Our Architectural Review Committee and our HOA have all considered our plan and found it to be favorable and have given the approval to move forward. We could have deviously skirted this entire process by following the city building code and built two 10 by 12 foot structures merely 2 inches away from each other to achieve the similar effect without even a need for a deviation or mitigating landscape. But that is not who we are. We continue to be in compliance with the city's requirements for the deviation request and have heavily weighed the importance of protecting the value of our properties as well as the potential impacts to our neighbors. We sincerely appreciate your thoughtful review and consideration of our appeal for our deviation request. We realize that not all properties are created equal, and this deviation process has been put in place for specific reasons and considerations such as ours. This is our dream. This is our yard. Our hope is that you will consider the supportive opinions of us, our neighbors, our HOA, and the City of Oviedo in making your final decision. I urge you to vote in support of our deviation request. At this time, I'd also like to ask for the opportunity to potentially rebut at the end of the proceedings today. But even more important than that, we stand here willing to compromise for a third time with a party that has yet to talk to us about it. We feel like we are the only ones making compromise and consideration here. And the one party behind us has not made any concessions at all and just used the words no. Again, council, we stand here willing to compromise, and we look forward to hearing your ideas tonight. Thank you very much.
Hang on. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Maybe later. Maybe later.
I have some.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Is the pool there already?
The pool is there. We swam in it for the first time Saturday.
You said you had HOA approval. The last letter we have from your HOA says they did not approve it.
There's also a letter in there or an email from that person, Linda Fisher, who's the ARC committee chairwoman, saying that if the City of Oviedo approves this deviation, they would be in full support of that. There was some confusion at the beginning of this process. And there is an email sent to you from the Vice President of our HOA clearing this matter up. So we'd encourage you to reference that.
Who is the vice president?
Mark Dowling.
Do you have a copy of that? It's not
We submitted it.
I think it's in our packet.
Okay. Let's see if we can find it.
Yeah.
Do you have any engineered drawings? Any engineered plans, any landscape plans, any architectural drawings, any 3D images? The same thing that you saw O'Reilly bring in tonight? Because all I have in my package tonight from you is a stick drawing.
The original plans do have architectural drawings on there, and we've submitted to the City of Oviedo, and we are.
But you didn't submit them in your deviation request.
Yeah, we're open to suggestions and trying to be in a compromising position here.
All right, just asking.
Yep.
Do you have 3D drawings of it?
Yes, sir. They're a part of our plan.
All right, so you have something just like what O'Reilly provided for us over there.
I would assume that the City of Oviedo has those original plans, and you should have that paperwork in front of you.
Well, just so we're clear on the process, this is your appeal. It's up to you to put together the package to present to us, not our staff. So
Okay.
we don't have that in front of us.
We were asked to submit it to the City Planning Department, and that would be handed
Well,
to you.
we'll work all that out.
Okay.
That's quite important because folks have a fear of the unknown. And if you can show the unknown, sometimes the unknown becomes acceptable. And it's hard to ask for us to grant, in my opinion, deviations without seeing it. So let's go through the process and we'll see where we come up.
Okay.
One question, if you
Sure,
may.
of course.
Your Exhibit 1, that pool screen that you showed us, is that pool screen encroaching the 25-foot setback?
That pool screen is about 10 feet from that property line.
Pools have a different setback.
Pools have a setback.
requirement.
I just wanted to ask.
I think the point of that is to show that towering structures do exist within what we're proposing, within our neighborhood. So there is pre-existing condition.
Mr. Cobb, for clarity, pool screens have a different setback requirement than accessory building structures.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cobb, what is it for the record for the pool screens? Do you know?
I would have to look it up, but I can if you need me to.
Each neighborhood's different, depending on the PUD.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
I have a question while
go
we're
right
waiting
ahead.
for him to look it up. You mentioned that there were other outdoor kitchens in that neighborhood. Were they as big as the one that you want to do?
There are other outdoor kitchens in our neighborhood that are attached to the house and coming off of the back of the house, which can still be seen from, multiple streets.
Do they have roofs on them?
They have roof
And they're as
structures
big?
with matching shingles, yes, ma'am. They look very much like what we're proposing, but just by nature, because of where the pool is located, we can't achieve that same look. I can tell you that our neighbors would have the exact same vantage point with what we're proposing compared to what already exists in our neighborhood.
Okay. And as far as your HOA, I did read one that was against us approving this, but I also did read one that was in favor, but I can't find it. It's not in our package.
Attachment 4. Yeah.
Attachment 4?
Did staff give you any alternatives in placement?
Yeah, we've worked with staff for a considerable amount of time, and we've looked at other options. Moving the structure to the west would position the building away from our lanai, closer to the deep end, and in our mind, create more of a safety issue. Where the lanai is located and the adjacent walk area, which would have most of the traffic, would be on the shallow end of the pool, and we feel better for the children that are ours and others that would be visiting as well. But moving it to the west wouldn't change the deviation at all.
Well, if it was in the back, you could move it closer to the house then, couldn't you?
The air conditioning
Theoretically.
unit and pool pump are over in that area, so,
And it's on I can see it on the,
yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry, I think I missed the beginning part of that. What if you were to move it to the other side of the yard in the
So if we
back?
moved it to the other side of the yard.
Is that the west side?
The west side, yes, ma'am.
Good.
It would not change the deviation because we would just be a lateral move.
And
I'm
we-
sorry?
Yeah, moving it to the west or to the opposite side of the pool wouldn't change the deviation requested, but we feel would put that traffic in more of a harmful position near the deep end of the pool. We'd like to keep the structure
Gotcha.
on the shallow end of the pool where most of the traffic will be adjacent to our lanai there.
I'm just going to jump in for a second. Who am I looking for a letter from? Because the only one I have here is from a Mark Dowling.
That is our vice president.
Right, and all he's saying is that if we approve it, he'll move to get the board to approve it. I don't see where your board has approved this yet.
So in the original packet for the LPA committee, there was emails submitted, and a part of that evidence, if you will, that has what we're referring to from Linda Fisher.
It's an email from Linda Fisher.
There it is.
Well, I've got one dated here, May 4th, 2016.
Yes, sir.
It says the Architectural Review Board is opposed. Would you like me to read it?
It's not the correct letter that we're referencing.
Okay. Can anybody produce a letter from the HOA for me? Staff, anybody?
Yeah, I'm on,
Mr. Mayor?
Or tell me where it is, because the attachment I'm looking
Attachment
in,
4.
it's not there.
attachment 4, bottom of the,
On May 6,
I went
4:49
over here,
p.m.
attachment 4, right there, see?
It's up higher. 1, 2, 3. It's the attachment, it says attachment 26, Kearney Beale Way. There it is.
Okay, but again now, she's not granting your approval. Let me read it. It says, if this is the right one now, it says, "Hi, Mark. I met with the Slaveks the other evening regarding their project. It is unfortunate that we did not know about the size restrictions and the setback requirements before granting them approval for the project. It is unfortunate that they did not notify us that they would have to apply for a deviation to continue with their project as planned. But after meeting with them, I am satisfied they will build a very nice outdoor kitchen with lots of landscaping around and behind to buffer any sounds. They will be putting a 6-foot fence around their yard, planting large trees and bushes, and the outdoor kitchen will have the same facade as their house. I will not be opposed to them winning the deviation hearing on May 10th. If the city grants them deviation to continue with their construction, I personally do not think we as a community should pursue this matter any further." That's not approval.
Well, the original email prior to that is her approving it, and it should be in that.
And guys, I am not trying to give you a hard time.
No.
I know it seems like I am.
No.
But if we don't have all the ducks in a row, if we don't have, and this is just my opinion, there's other members up here, but if we don't have drawings, if we don't have facades, if we don't, it's hard, and I'm not.
We could give you a deviation, and you could say, and I'm not, again, but you could say you're building whatever, and you could build something else entirely, but you have the deviation to go on. That's, I believe, his point. And if it was, people easily have that fight with a commercial property. If we have a commercial property and we're talking about something like this, their first thought is, well, you're going to give them this, and they're going to build, they say they're building they're going to build a Starbucks, but then they come in and build, something else entirely. They say they're going to build a bank, and they come in and change it without having to go through any process, some other building, things like that. So that's what I believe the mayor is really saying is, we grant this deviation, the deviation is granted at that point, and unless we have every T and have every word that says you're going to build exactly A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you can theoretically go build anything you want and then shield it and say, well, I put up some bamboo trees and I put up this, and put whatever you wanted to there.
Trust me, I'm not trying to deny you or approve you right now. I'm just trying to get all the information.
So it's our understanding that this is this process is a continuation of the original application, which had all of our plans, architectural plans in there. We were counseled that all of that would be included and you would have access to that. And so that's what we're operating.
Well, if you were given the wrong information or you misunderstood the information, I do apologize. We do not have it in our packet. There is very little in here that shows me, other than the 2 stick drawings that we saw.
It does exist, and I'd be happy to get it for you. It was my understanding that it would be here for you tonight. So.
It doesn't do us any good now, Dr. Correa. Nope, it's fine.
She wants to clarify.
All right, let's. I'll going to see what the council wants to do. But anybody have any other questions for Slaveks?
No.
At this time? No. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your consideration.
You're welcome. Dr. Correa, I'm sorry. What did you wanted to address us?
Attachment 2. Okay.
Good evening. In attachment 2, you have the sketches.
Right.
Right? And that's what they submitted with the deviation. What we have here are the building plans that were not part of, the package, because at this point they were just requesting the deviation for the zoning. So this was not part of our review at this point. And whatever was decided with the deviation, then we would have to apply to the building permit. So, any mitigation for the architecture, anything that would come up from the deviation process, then we would apply to the building permit. But we didn't attach and we didn't review the building plans yet,
right,
because
You're not at
We
that
still have the
point.
deviation pending.
But you can understand my concern.
Sure,
It's very
sure.
hard for
And
us
it
to make a
was-
decision. I mean, we require every commercial developer who wants to come in here and ask us for a deviation to bring us in a board like that and explain to us exactly what they want.
I
So that board
apologize.
becomes part of our decision, whichever it may be. So that way, when the applicant comes back to you, you can just refer back to, this is exactly what council approved. And if they want to deviate from it, then they come back to us. So that's my concern. It's also very hard to make a decision, and, you know,
Without them.
I don't doubt that this isn't going to be the most beautiful outdoor kitchen in the world. It's just, for me right now, it's a struggle. So do we have that information? I mean, do you have what this thing is going to look like? Do you have?
And you have in a very, it's
Yeah,
an
but
attachment to-
I found it finally. I have a picture of a roof line.
Right.
And I don't have much of anything.
Mr. Mayor,
I have pictures of their house. I have a stick drawing of their pool.
Yeah. That's just the elevator, no site plan, no,
Do you have a site plan of where it's going to lay out on the property?
I mean,
Is it
besides
in there?
with trees, you know, again, it's,
Not a lands, this is just the building, so it would not have the landscape plans. It would have the detailed engineering, you know.
Teresa, how many walls are there?
Sorry?
How many walls are there?
They're proposing 3 walls.
3 walls in one open space.
Yes.
Which one is?
No, they're saying, all right, you know what?
Two
Let-
one back wall, 2 halves. One back wall, 2 halves.
And 2 pillars then. Yeah.
Okay.
So one solid wall.
And I don't know if these ones reflect the changes, right? Because you've made changes. So this is the original.
Yeah.
We did not review those plans.
Okay.
And as to the homeowners association letter, we received, with the original application, we received a letter from Mrs. Linda Fisher supporting the project. Then I think she learned that the project would require deviations, so she sent us a letter, and that's the letter that was submitted with the LPA.
The one I just read that said she...
Opposing, no, the second one opposing. And then later on, she met with the applicant, and then she submitted an email, and that's the one you read, saying that she would be fine if the city grants the deviation.
But I'm sure there's a board of 5 or 6 on their ARC committee. You know, Ms. Fisher doesn't have the...
They reviewed the plans and approved it. That was the first letter that she had. The architectural review committee reviewed the plans, the architectural plans, approved those plans, and told us to move forward.
But they were not aware that the plans would trigger a deviation process with us. So when they learned that, they sent us another communication opposing, and then a third one.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you. No, we didn't.
That explains why
We got to go.
you moved forward with the pool before you got approval on the kitchen.
Step up. Let me ask.
Seems to me like if you planned this all together, which I assume you did.
Applicant, why don't you come on up, Tim? Thank you, Dr. Correa.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to think out loud to grasp this. That it seems that if you knew you had to get the deviation
No,
to
it's
begin
a-
with, you might have put the kitchen in first and then moved the pool out because you only need a 10-foot setback for the pool. But now the pool's in, so the cast has died, and we've got to work around it. That's the conundrum we're in.
Yeah, I mean,
The pool was put in prior to us deciding on a outdoor kitchen. Then we decided to do it, did not realize that we would need a deviation, and at that point,
we are not versed in land development, so unfortunately, and so we found out what the process would entail, and we diligently followed that process.
Are you going to have a pizza oven in or something? Why does it need to be so big?
This is just our original conceptual dream. Does it need to be, to get your approval, does it need to be that big? No. We've been willing to compromise the entire way, and we hope to reach a compromise tonight. To your answer, sir, it does not have to be that big. That's just what we would like.
it's to host cooking area, and then
I'd like to have a
also
red
seating area.
Porsche, but
I don't know why the sound barrier is so important, because I think you could put a trampoline out there and you wouldn't need a sound barrier, would you?
if they would prefer that it be an open air, that would save me thousands of dollars, and I'd be willing to do that. But as considerate, thoughtful neighbors, we thought that putting that barrier would be something that would be agreeable by our neighbors, because we're making every effort to make it not negatively impacting them. But if they would like us to remove that back wall, I'd be delighted to.
Well, I'd like to see something get worked out. This
I do
is
too.
really,
Yeah, I mean, as Councilman Britton, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we've got seems to be a reasonable request for an accommodation that's now turned into an emotional issue on two sides, and it makes us very uncomfortable here. I don't know how to make a decision based on emotions coming from either side.
We've asked those folks to come to us and share what they would be willing to do, and the answer has just been no, resounding no. And you'll see that, I'm assuming it's a part of the package you're looking at there, our correspondence to this neighbor and their refusal to meet with us. I'd like nothing more than that, to make a compromise. And
Brian, do we have any kind of a mediation mechanism that we could put in place either through the LPA or staff?
We don't have anything formal, no, sir.
Again, just like everybody else, and then if they, there are multiple avenues for them to speak and come here also, both the PZA and tonight. So I think, we take it as, I think they do say no, period. I don't know what they're opposed to specifically, but if you don't state it, then their answer is just a no, period. So I'll take that as that's all their input. I'm not going to assume their input is a wall would be better or worse. I think, an open air is less. To me, less intrusive, less mass. It's a massing issue. You're looking for a 56% deviation. As the PZA said, the first thing off is there a need? There's no specific need. I mean, I don't see your landscape. There's a water issue.
Hey, Steve, I think we're
arguing
a motion right now. That's not even me.
But I'm not trying to. I'm just, it goes back to their point of if they're not here to state their opinion, a lot of assumptions. We can make a lot of assumptions. It's just.
Well, we're going to get to all this. I'm just trying to cut to the chase here. Let me ask Mr. Colbert a question, if I can, and then we'll take it from here. Mr. Colbert, and the whole entire council hasn't raised this concern, but I have, and I'll ask them in a moment. Since I feel that the package isn't complete, are we able to send this back down to LPA without going through the entire public hearing, ask the applicants to put together a complete package, as I've requested or I've mentioned, go back through the LPA process, and perhaps this can all just be rectified right there? Or do we have to finish the public hearing first to make that motion? I'll do it however you want it done.
I understand. If the council chooses to do so, based on the fact that there is information here that LPA did not look at, and there is also additional information apparently on file with the city that is not part of the packet, I think the council, if it chose to do so, could continue this hearing to a later time, refer the matter back to LPA to consider the additional, the modifications and the additional data that was not before them, and to make a recommendation to the city if that process brings about some type of agreed upon compromise, so much the better. If it does not, the council would still have the final decision to make at a later date if you continued this. You do not have to hear it all tonight. You do have the power to continue and to refer back if you choose to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert.
Yes, sir.
Could I just ask for clarification? It would still have to come back either way. You said a recommendation by PZA, and then it would come back for approval of the
Yes,
recommendation?
sir. It's under your jurisdiction now, and it would come back to you
It has to remain under it.
to either bless what had been agreed upon or to take the LPA's comments under consideration, but you would make the final decision because it's been appealed to you on a de novo basis.
I'm concerned that we're being sent back to a committee that didn't allow any compromise or rebuttal or any conversation at all at that meeting. I'm very concerned that we're just going to go in circles here. LPA didn't ask us any questions at all. Didn't give us the opportunity to compromise at all with the one sole party that's against this, and so I'm just concerned that we're going to go in circles here, wasting your time. And I mean, will we have to reapply and spend another $500? I mean, do we need to do that, or can we just solve this tonight?
If you'd like us to solve it tonight, I'll open up the public hearing, and we'll have a hearing. Your call.
I'd like.
Are you sure?
Yes. I have nothing to,
with all the comments I've made about how insufficient I find your packet, are you sure?
I would argue that our packet is thorough, and you should have it.
Are you sure, Tim? Do you want me to take a 5-minute recess and go talk this over with your wife?
I'm ready to move forward tonight, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to move forward.
Thank you very much for your advice.
Okay. Yes.
Are the neighbors?
Yeah, they're here.
Are they here? You got everybody? Okay, good.
They're in here.
Mayor?
Yes.
Could I address Mr. Hinkins' question?
Yes.
Okay. You asked about pools and screen enclosures. That's covered under Section 4.15B. And there's some similar things to detached accessory structures, i.e. they have to be located to the rear of the structure, and that you can't exceed, the screen enclosure cannot exceed the height of the principal structure. Right. The maximum, this is number 3, the maximum height of the rear edge of the screen enclosure structure measured at the minimum rear setback line, which I'll get to in just a second, shall not exceed 14 feet above the finished grade. The rear setback of an outdoor screen enclosure shall be increased by 1 foot of additional setback distance for each additional foot in height of the rear edge screen enclosure. In other words, if you go to 15 feet, you got to push it back a foot. 16 feet, push it back another foot. The maximum height of an outdoor screen enclosure shall step back according to the slope angle, not to exceed 1 foot to 1 foot rise to 1 foot run. So your screen enclosure roof goes this way. The setbacks. Okay, the setbacks, obviously front and side, are the same as the principal structure, and the idea behind that was that you would not be able to see it if you look down the side yard. The side corner setback no less than the setback of the principal structure, and then the rear setback is it's a minimum 7 feet to the edge of the pool, and a minimum of 7 feet to the edge of the screen enclosure.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Colbert, one last question before I open up the public hearing. Are we able to continue this ourselves for 2 weeks and have them come straight back to us and not go to LPA?
Yes, sir.
So that they can make a sufficient packet and submit it to us?
Yes, sir. You may do that.
Mr. Applicant, come on up to the microphone. I'm going to give you one more chance. I am trying to give you helpful advice.
Please, we welcome that. That's why we're here today.
Your package does not have enough information. Or if it does have the information, it's scattered all over the place.
Okay.
I need you to the council may ask you to sit with our staff, put together a sufficient package with all the drawings, a site plan, a landscape plan. Show us what you're going to do. Show your neighbors what you're going to do. Let us put it up on the screen. This is what we're going to do. You can talk about it all you want, but all we have is a stick drawing.
If we would have the
approval from your ARC committee, not emails from a friend who said, well, not that she's a friend, but that says, I'll push to get it approved. Get the formal approval stamped. Our ARC approves this if you grant the deviation. So that way we can help everybody get where they need to be. Now, to the neighbors who are opposed to this, I completely understand your position as well, And if the olive branch has been opened up to sit down and have a conversation, I'm going to highly recommend that that conversation happens before you come back into our council chambers and we spend 45 minutes going in circles, and then we find out that the neighbors haven't even had a conversation with each other. That's disheartening. So there's a whole bunch of wrongs here. And, I'm not saying you're right building this huge structure, and I'm not saying we're going to approve it even if you put that whole package together, but it's hard for us to make a decision without it. Council, have any other questions for the applicant, and then we'll have a conversation amongst ourselves?
No.
I got a question for Mr. Colvin.
Sure.
If we go down this line and table this for a couple weeks, and the applicant is able to redesign it to where there's no deviation required, does it still have to come back here, or does the issue go away?
Well, if a design is incorporated which the staff concludes requires no deviation, and the applicant chooses then to proceed on an item that requires no deviation, the applicant could withdraw the appeal and it would be moot.
What if the deviation is such that staff can approve it without council approval? Is that allowable?
Same situation, yes, sir.
Do you agree? Be more agreeable to that?
We'd welcome that opportunity to come directly back to you at a later date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, what do you want to do?
Make a motion to continue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do we need a date specific?
Yes,
What's the next meeting date, Brian?
July 18th.
July 18th.
July
Make a motion
18th.
to continue to July 18th.
Second. That's good.
Look to have increased information to help us make a more informed decision.
And to get together with the neighbors.
And we encourage you highly.
Yep.
And the neighbors to encourage them to highly get together.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Are your direct neighbors who said have not met you, are they here this evening? I would like to hear from them before we do the, you guys have had like 40 minutes and I have not heard from them yet or anybody. And I really, if you have a motion on the table, we'll do it. But I'd like to hear from your direct neighbor and get some other input on this before we continue. A lot of people.
Councilman Henkin, the direct neighbor is not the applicant, and if we're not going to take public comment from anybody, I don't think that's appropriate. Mr. Colbert? Councilman Henkin wants to hear public comment from only two people.
I think you either have a public hearing or you don't. I don't think council should get in the posture of picking who they will hear from the public and who they will not hear from. If there's going to be a public hearing, it should be open to anyone who chooses to speak. If you want to continue the matter, you can certainly do that now, and all of the parties can come back at a later time and say whatever they choose to say to the council, if there is another hearing.
Choice is the council's. If we hear from one, we can hear from all 13, and then we can make a motion to continue anyway.
Since I made the motion to continue, I feel it's the best advice or the best thing right now, and I appreciate everybody's time. I really hate to, because you're going to come back, that would make you come back. If you can't, please put it in writing, but I'd like to hear all the information from the applicant. I don't think that it's fair just to look at what we have as a package. Obviously, we feel it's a little short. So I feel we'd hear it all at that time. I'd hate to hear 13, whatever the number is now, and then some of them don't show, or others, et cetera. Just, we make a continuation and do the whole thing in July 18th. And again, I do appreciate your time now, but we would do that. This is like any other applicant that comes forward, and we find that we don't have sufficient information to make a decision. If it was you, you'd be asking the same thing on both sides. There's not sufficient information to make a decision. We've asked. I'm not blaming staff. I'm not blaming them. It's a difficult thing to come to an appeal, so we'd like to make sure that we're looking at all the information completely.
Mr. Mayor, I also agree with Deputy Mayor Schenk on waiting. I think that if they meet and they go back to the LPA board and they meet with the neighbors and talk about it and revise something, some of the comments may just go away. it may not be necessary to hold it. And it's hard to make a decision when you only have part of the information. And I agree with Councilman Britton that it's become an emotional thing, and we have to stick to the facts. So I would prefer waiting and getting all the information back, and I do apologize, too, for everybody's time and having to come back again, but we want to make the right decision because we respect what you're trying to do and we respect what your neighbors are against, doing it. So we want to make it fair for everybody to come together and make the solution that's good for each of the neighbors.
Mr. Mayor? Just real quick, I would say, I feel bad you all came out here. We have these to speak. But having said all that, I would encourage, if you guys have reached out to your neighbors and they're not meeting you, I would just say I would strongly encourage them to meet with you and try. Because one thing I've learned up here after 11 years is when people don't talk, nothing happens. When people do talk, sometimes things get to work out. Now, they have a big concern here with this huge deviation. But it's still, if you're willing and you've tried, when you come back here in July 18th, hopefully you guys will have sat down and helped us a little bit. So I will go along. It's good.
Anything, Councilman Britton?
I'm good.
Motion on the table is to continue till July 18th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. See everybody back on the 18th.
Supposed to have a discussion item for you.
He's going to have to stand there and talk for
I know.
Nope, he's mad. They're going to all hate me now.
All righty, Mr. Cobb, we have no discussion items tonight, so you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one thing, and it's very quick. If I could ask Mr. Wyatt to come up, he'd like to get some input on street signs.
Street signs. Yahoo. We're getting choices? I like choices.
Good.
Oh, yay, this is fun.
Yes.
Yay.
Show you these, but I'm sure you're familiar with the green. This is what we've done all over the city traditionally. The black and white is what you've seen throughout Avon Park. It's been carried on throughout it's been constructed. We're getting ready to start redoing signs in the city. Big push. And I want to see if you'd like to take this opportunity to change up and do it in a direction, make Oviedo different than your standard everyday city. There is no cost difference. These are just stickers on back of a metal sign. So
Bobby?
you choose any color, any type. I think Mr. Cabo wants an orange and white one on Lake Court. Mr. Ford will be happy with that.
Mr. Wyatt, can you stand back there and hold both up so we can see it from a distance?
We'll let you and Parks fight that one out.
Right. Mayor, one of the things, what Mr. Wyatt's talking about is that with our repaving program this year, part of the thing we're going, when we go into the neighborhoods, we're going to also do assessment on the street signs and start to replace them out. Obviously, if the city council would prefer us to go to the white sign and to start spreading the Oviedo on the Park effect throughout the city, then we'll change out all of them. But we just wanted to get your ideas.
White.
Let's start with the councilwoman.
White.
White.
Deputy Mayor?
White.
Councilman Britton?
I have no opinion.
Yeah, well, I knew you were going to say that.
One of those things. The color of the drapes don't mean anything to me. As long as I can read it.
Darn engineers. Steve, any opinion?
I think Mr. Cobb just hit it. The identity of Oviedo on the Park spread throughout the city. I think it's time. Everybody has green and white, so I like the black and white. You can do my street tomorrow if you want. I'll be the test person for it.
Bobby, the only thing I would add is the white and the black is nice. It's different. But what about the poles? You know, we got these ugly metal poles, half are rusted, half are bent. Are we going to replace those with a black pole?
I can certainly look into it, sir.
I mean, it doesn't have to be decorative. It could just be, You're replacing the poles, just replace them.
I will certainly look into it because it's a good idea.
That'd be nice. Yes.
Because I know in my neighborhood, there's a whole bunch of them bent and
I'll look into it and let you all know.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Good.
There you go.
White,
Is that
black.
consensus?
I'll be
Black
at
and
the
white,
right-
it was consensus.
All right.
Mine's pretty rusty. I'm the test guy. Put it up. Good. Send them all over my
Yes, sir.
way.
Now, what are you going to do on private streets?
Well, private has been, as you know, it's the green and white as well, but it's reversed. We'll probably stick with the same.
Okay.
So it'd be white with green letters.
Right. White with green letters, private street, white with black, public street.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Go forth and street sign.
Add that to the wayfinding study that we just adopted.
Wasn't that in the Wayfinder
Yes.
study that they were going to go black and white?
Yes. I thought it was.
You're correct. In the wayfinding study, it shows a street sign. We adopted the specification for the sizing, but I wanted to make sure, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that you
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But the Wayfinding study...
wayfinding has black
Yes,
and white.
it does, but I wanted to make sure.
Yep, no, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Pointing it out.
Anything else, Mr. Cobb?
No, sir.
Mr. Colbert, it's so nice to have you here this evening, sir. Do you have anything to add?
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I have no additional items to bring to you.
Now, I
tonight.
am deeply concerned. Did your phones and computers come back online yet in the office?
No, sir, they were fried over the weekend, and the parts are supposed to be in the morning, and they hope that our office will be back online tomorrow afternoon.
We are terribly sorry to hear that. Nothing worse than coming in Monday morning and having all your electronics fried.
Mr.
Yeah, can
Colbert,
you-
aren't you on the cloud?
Yes, sir, but we can't reach it right now. And if you can imagine,
Can't reach the cloud.
8 attorneys without the ability to communicate with the world, it hasn't been fun. So,
Oh, geez.
Good luck with that, Mr. Colbert.
yes, sir.
Our communications and reports. Steve, Councilman Aiken, I'm sorry, you're up. You're good. Councilwoman.
I'm good.
All righty. Keith.
Real
Councilman.
quick, Brian, please congratulate the staff and thank them and everyone else who was involved in the vigil the other night. I thought that was a great ceremony and served to unite us a little bit in this hard week we had last week. And the only other thing I have is I'm going to have an ION meeting. I don't see Ben in the audience, but I'll have an ION meeting on Thursday just to get together and assess where we want to go from here.
Where's the meeting at?
It is in the City Hall Annex conference room.
What time?
7 o'clock. And there may just be pizza there.
Well, look at that. I'll come for pizza.
All right,
Anything else, Keith?
that's it.
All righty. I've got no report. Deputy Mayor?
The Chamber had a great, their monthly meeting was hospitals and healthcare. It's usually very well attended, and it was. Some good information on a lot of hospitals. And again, another great report. They're way ahead of schedule for Oviedo Hospital right now, so that was great to hear. There are very other excitement about the ancillary offices and what they expect to come with that. So it was very good to hear.
Excellent. Anything else? All righty, future meeting dates. We have Monday, June 27th, 5:30 p.m. is a budget work session. Be here at City Hall. Monday, July 4th, there's no meeting. Monday, July 18th, 6:30 p.m., regular session. And then the same on Monday, August 1st at 6:30 p.m. Mr. Cobb, anything else for us?
No, sir.
Council, anything for the good of the order? We're
Nothing
good?
for the good.
Meeting's adjourned.